Hey there, welcome back to Story Slices, where we slice through the best Reddit tales just for you. Let's dive right into the first story. The first one is the Tittle story, and it starts like this. I never thought I'd be the type of person to get into a legal battle with my homeowners association, but life has a funny way of throwing curveballs at you. My name's Mike, and this is the story of how my peaceful suburban life turned into a David versus Goliath situation that I never saw coming. It all started about 2 years ago. I'd been living in Oakwood Estates, a quaint little neighborhood on the outskirts of town, for nearly a decade. My wife Sarah and I bought our house here when we were newlyweds, attracted by the well-maintained common areas, the friendly neighbors, and the promise of a drama-free life. One of the main selling points for us was the spacious backyard. Sarah had always dreamed of having a garden, and I promised her that we'd make it happen. Over the years, we poured our hearts and souls into transforming that patch of land into a beautiful oasis. We planted everything from vibrant flowers to fruit trees, and even had a small vegetable patch where we grew our own tomatoes, peppers, and herbs. Our garden became our pride and joy. We'd spend weekends tending to it, host barbecues for friends and family, and even won the neighborhood's Best Garden Award 3 years in a row. It was our little slice of paradise. But paradise, as it turns out, can be fragile. It was a sunny Saturday morning in April when I first noticed something was off. I was out in the garden, coffee in hand, ready to start my weekend routine of weeding and pruning. As I walked towards the back of our property, I saw something that made my heart skip a beat. There, at the far end of our garden, was a bright yellow excavator. And it wasn't alone. A group of men in hard hats were milling around, consulting blueprints and marking areas with bright orange spray paint. I blinked, certain I was seeing things, but when I opened my eyes, they were still there. I put my coffee mug down on a nearby table and marched over to find out what the hell was going on. "Excuse me," I called out as I approached. "What's happening here?" A man who seemed to be in charge looked up from his blueprints. He was middle-aged, with a receding hairline and a paunch that strained against his safety vest. "Morning, sir," he said, his tone friendly but professional. "We're just getting started on the new parking lot project." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Parking lot? What parking lot? The man, whose name tag read Bob, furrowed his brow. "The new community parking lot. Didn't you get the notice from the homeowner association?" I shook my head, my mind reeling. "No, I didn't get any notice. And this is my property. My garden." Bob looked uncomfortable. "I'm sorry, sir, but according to our plans, this area is designated for the new lot. We have all the necessary approvals from the homeowner association." I felt a surge of anger rising in my chest. "I don't care what the homeowner association says. This is my land. I have the deed to prove it. You can't just come in here and start digging up my garden." Bob held up his hands in a placating gesture. "Look, I'm just following orders here. If there's been a mistake, you'll need to take it up with the homeowner association. We can't stop work unless we get direct orders from them." I turned on my heel and stormed back to the house, my mind racing. Sarah was in the kitchen, making breakfast. She took one look at my face and knew something was wrong. "Mike, what's going on?" I explained the situation as calmly as I could, which wasn't very calm at all. Sarah's face went from confused to shocked to angry as I relayed what I'd seen and heard. "They can't do that," she exclaimed. "It's our property." I nodded grimly. "That's what I said. But apparently, the homeowner association has given them permission. We need to get to the bottom of this." We spent the next hour frantically searching through our files, looking for any notice from the homeowner association about this project. We found nothing. Not a single letter, email, or even a flyer mentioning anything about a new parking lot. "This has to be a mistake," Sarah said, running her hands through her hair in frustration. "Maybe they mixed up our address with someone else's?" I wished I could believe that, but a sinking feeling in my gut told me this was no simple mix-up. "I'm going to call Janet," I said, reaching for my phone. Janet was our next-door neighbor and also served on the homeowner association board. If anyone could shed some light on this situation, it would be her. The phone rang 3 times before Janet picked up. "Hello? Janet, it's Mike from next door. We've got a situation here. There are workers in our backyard saying they're building a parking lot. Do you know anything about this?" There was a pause on the other end of the line, long enough to make me suspicious. When Janet spoke again, her voice was hesitant. "Oh, yes, the board approved that project last month. Didn't you get the notice?" "No, we didn't," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "Janet, they're talking about building on our property, our garden. How could the board approve something like that without our consent?" Another pause. "Mike, I think you should come to the homeowner association office. This might be easier to explain in person." I agreed, and 15 minutes later, Sarah and I were walking into the small office that served as the homeowner association headquarters. Janet was there, along with 2 other board members, Tom, a retired accountant, and Melissa, a local real estate agent. Janet greeted us with a tight smile. "Mike, Sarah, thanks for coming. Please, have a seat." We sat down, and I noticed the 3 board members exchanging nervous glances. Finally, Tom cleared his throat and began to speak. "We understand you're upset about the parking lot project," he said, "but I assure you, everything has been done by the book." I leaned forward, my hands clenched into fists on my knees. "By the book? You're building on our property without our knowledge or consent. How is that by the book?" Melissa jumped in, her voice smooth and practiced. "Actually, Mike, according to the homeowner association bylaws, the board has the right to use up to 20% of any homeowner's property for community projects, as long as it's approved by a majority vote." I felt like I'd been slapped. "What? That can't be right. We never agreed to anything like that." Tom pushed a thick document across the table towards us. "It's all in here, in the covenant you signed when you bought the house. Section 7, paragraph 3. Sarah grabbed the document and started flipping through it frantically. I was too stunned to move. "But, why?" I finally managed to ask. "Why do you need to build a parking lot? And why on our property?" The 3 board members exchanged glances again. It was Janet who finally answered. "The truth is, Mike, the homeowner association has been struggling financially. We needed a new source of revenue, and the idea of a paid parking lot came up. Your property, well, it's the most suitable location, close to the main road, relatively flat. So you're not just taking our land, you're planning to profit from it." I could hear my voice rising, but I couldn't help it. This was beyond belief. "The revenue will benefit the entire community," Melissa said smoothly. "It will help keep our homeowner association fees down and fund improvements to the neighborhood." I stood up so abruptly that my chair scraped loudly against the floor. "This is insane. We're not going to let this happen. We'll fight this." Tom's expression hardened. "I'm sorry you feel that way, Mike, but the decision has been made. The project will go forward." Sarah and I left the office in a daze. As we walked home, the reality of the situation began to sink in. Our beautiful garden, the product of years of love and hard work, was about to be destroyed, and there seemed to be nothing we could do about it. But I'm not the type to give up without a fight. As soon as we got home, I started making calls. First to our homeowner's insurance, then to a real estate lawyer. The insurance company wasn't much help. Apparently, this kind of situation wasn't covered under our policy. But the lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Linda Reeves, agreed to meet with us the next day. That night, Sarah and I barely slept. We lay in bed, holding each other, trying to come to terms with what was happening. The sound of machinery starting up early the next morning was like a knife to the heart. Linda arrived at our house promptly at 9 a.m. She was a tall, imposing woman with steel gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. We sat at our kitchen table, the curtains drawn so we wouldn't have to see what was happening in our backyard. "So," Linda said after we'd explained the situation, "let me get this straight. The homeowner association is claiming they have the right to use 20% of your property for a community project, which in this case is a paid parking lot. And they're citing a clause in the homeowner association covenant as justification." We nodded glumly. Linda's eyes narrowed. "May I see this covenant?" I handed her the document Tom had given us yesterday. Linda put on a pair of reading glasses and began to pore over it, her lips moving silently as she read. After what seemed like an eternity, she looked up at us. "Well," she said, "I have good news and bad news." Sarah and I exchanged glances. "What's the bad news?" I asked. "The bad news is that this clause does exist in your covenant. It's not common, but it's not unheard of either. Some homeowner associations do reserve the right to use a portion of homeowners' property for community purposes." My heart sank. "And the good news?" A small smile played at the corners of Linda's mouth. "The good news is that this clause is almost certainly unenforceable." I felt a surge of hope. "What do you mean?" Linda leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. "Property rights are fundamental in this country. While homeowner associations can impose certain restrictions, they can't simply take your land without proper compensation. This clause essentially amounts to an easement, and easements need to be properly recorded with the county. I'd bet my law degree that this homeowner association never did that." "So what does that mean for us?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling slightly. "It means we have grounds to fight this," Linda said firmly. "We can file for an immediate injunction to stop the construction. Then we can sue the homeowner association for violating your property rights." For the first time in days, I felt a glimmer of hope. "Let's do it," I said. Linda nodded approvingly. "I'll file the paperwork today. In the meantime, I suggest you document everything. Take photos of the construction. Record any conversations with the homeowner association board or workers. And whatever you do, don't sign anything the homeowner association gives you. We thanked Linda profusely as she left, promising to keep us updated on the legal proceedings. As soon as she was gone, Sarah and I went into action mode. We took dozens of photos of the construction site, careful to show how it encroached on our property. We also started reaching out to our neighbors, explaining the situation and asking for their support. To our surprise and relief, many of our neighbors were horrified by what the homeowner association was doing. Several of them admitted that they'd received notices about the parking lot project but hadn't paid much attention to them. Now that they saw what was happening, they were eager to back us up. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal activity. True to her word, Linda filed for an emergency injunction, and a judge granted it within days. The construction came to a screeching halt, much to the confusion of Bob and his crew. The homeowner association board, predictably, didn't take this lying down. They hired their own lawyer and tried to argue that the clause in the covenant gave them the right to use our land. But Linda was ready for them. In a preliminary hearing, she presented evidence that the easement had never been properly recorded with the county. She also argued that even if it had been, the homeowner association's actions were a gross overreach of their authority. Your Honor, Linda said, her voice ringing out in the courtroom, the homeowner association's actions amount to nothing less than an unlawful taking of private property. They not only failed to obtain my client's consent, but they also failed to provide any form of compensation. This is a clear violation of my client's constitutional rights. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, peered over her glasses at the homeowner association's lawyer. Counselor, do you have any response to these allegations? The homeowner association's lawyer, a nervous-looking man named Peterson, shuffled his papers. Your Honor, the homeowner association acted in good faith based on the covenant signed by all homeowners. We believe this gives us the authority to use a portion of any property for community benefit. The judge's eyebrows shot up. Even if that were true, which I'm not convinced it is, how do you justify turning a private garden into a for-profit parking lot? That hardly seems like a community benefit. Peterson stammered, The revenue would have benefited the entire community, Your Honor. The judge shook her head. Mr. Peterson, I suggest you advise your clients to reconsider their position. This court takes a very dim view of organizations that think they can simply appropriate private property for their own gain. As we left the courthouse that day, Linda was grinning from ear to ear. We've got them on the ropes, she said. I wouldn't be surprised if they come to us with a settlement offer soon. She was right. Within a week, we received a call from Janet. The homeowner association board wanted to meet with us to discuss a resolution. The meeting was held in the same small office where this nightmare had begun. This time, however, the atmosphere was very different. The board members looked nervous and subdued. Tom, in particular, couldn't seem to meet our eyes. Janet cleared her throat. Mike, Sarah, on behalf of the homeowner association board, I want to apologize for the distress we've caused you. We made a mistake. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Sarah squeezed my hand under the table. Melissa spoke up next. We're prepared to offer you compensation for the damage done to your property. We'll also cover the cost of restoring your garden to its original state. I looked at Linda, who had insisted on being present for this meeting. She gave a small nod. That's a start, I said slowly, but it's not enough. We want assurances that this will never happen again. Not just to us, but to any homeowner in this community. Tom nodded vigorously. Of course. We're prepared to amend the homeowner association bylaws to remove the clause about using homeowners' property. We'll also implement new procedures to ensure all major decisions are communicated clearly to all residents and require explicit consent for any projects affecting private property. Linda leaned forward. My clients will also require the current board to step down and for new elections to be held. The board members exchanged glances, then nodded reluctantly. One more thing, I added. We want a public apology issued to the entire community, explaining what happened and the steps you're taking to make it right. Janet winced but nodded. That's fair. Over the next hour, we hammered out the details of the agreement. The homeowner association would pay for the complete restoration of our garden, plus additional compensation for our distress and legal fees. They agreed to all our terms about changing the bylaws and leadership, and they committed to issuing a public apology within the week. As we left the meeting, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It wasn't over yet. There was still paperwork to be filed and changes to be implemented, but we had won. Our home, our garden, was safe. The next few months were busy but satisfying. We oversaw the restoration of our garden, taking the opportunity to make some improvements we'd always wanted. The new homeowner association board, elected in a community-wide vote, proved to be much more transparent and homeowner-friendly. The public apology from the old board caused quite a stir in the neighborhood. Many of our neighbors came by to express their support and congratulate us on standing up to the homeowner association. Some even brought plants as gifts to help replenish our garden. One sunny Saturday, about 6 months after the whole ordeal began, Sarah and I were out in our newly restored garden. The fruit trees were blossoming, the vegetable patch was thriving, and the flower beds were a riot of color. As we stood there, arms around each other, admiring our handiwork, our next-door neighbor Bill called over the fence. "Hey, Mike, Sarah, garden's looking great." We smiled and waved. Bill continued, "You know, I was just telling my wife, we're lucky to have neighbors like you. Standing up for what's right, making sure we all get treated fairly. This whole community's better off because of what you did." As Bill walked away, Sarah turned to me with tears in her eyes. "He's right, you know. We did make a difference." I pulled her close and kissed the top of her head. "We sure did, honey. We sure did." Looking out over our beautiful garden, I felt a sense of pride and accomplishment. We had faced a seemingly insurmountable challenge and come out on top. We had protected not just our property, but the rights of everyone in our community. And as I stood there with my wife and our little piece of paradise, I knew that whatever challenges the future might bring, we would face them together, stronger for having weathered this storm. The experience had taught us valuable lessons about standing up for our rights, the importance of community support, and the power of perseverance. It had also shown us that sometimes, you have to fight for what's right, even when the odds seem stacked against you. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over our garden, I couldn't help but feel grateful. Grateful for our home, our community, and the strength we had found within ourselves. Whatever the future held, I knew we were ready for it. And who knows, maybe next year we'd win that Best Garden Award again. After all, our garden had quite a story to tell now, a story of resilience, justice, and the triumph of the little guy over corporate greed. A story that, like our garden, would continue to grow and flourish for years to come. Update. It's been about 2 years since our battle with the homeowner association, and I'm happy to say that life in Oakwood Estates has changed for the better. The new homeowner association board, elected after the old one stepped down, has been true to their word about transparency and respecting homeowners' rights. Last month, we had our annual homeowner association meeting, and I couldn't help but reflect on how different things were now. The meeting was held in the community center, and almost every homeowner showed up. There was a sense of engagement and community spirit that had been missing before. As I sat there with Sarah, listening to the board's report on the past year's activities and plans for the future, I felt a surge of pride. We had played a part in bringing about this positive change. The board president, a friendly woman named Rachel, was going through the financial report when she paused and looked directly at Sarah and me. "Before we move on," she said, "I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge Mike and Sarah Thompson. As many of you know, their stand against the previous board's attempt to build a parking lot on their property was a turning point for our community. Their actions led to significant changes in how our homeowner association operates, and we're all better off for it." There was a round of applause, and I felt my face grow warm. Sarah squeezed my hand, beaming. Rachel continued, "In light of this, the board has decided to create a new position, the homeowner's advocate. This person will be responsible for ensuring that all homeowner association decisions are made with full transparency and in the best interests of individual homeowners as well as the community as a whole. And we'd like to nominate Mike for this position." I was stunned. I looked at Sarah, who nodded encouragingly. I'd be honored," I managed to say. The vote was unanimous. As the meeting adjourned, several of our neighbors came up to congratulate me and express their support. Our friend Bill clapped me on the back. "Couldn't have picked a better person for the job, Mike. You'll keep him honest." As we walked home that evening, Sarah linked her arm through mine. "I'm so proud of you," she said. "You stood up for what was right, and now you're in a position to make sure it stays that way." I nodded, feeling a mix of pride and responsibility. "I just hope I can live up to everyone's expectations." Sarah laughed. "You will. You've got a whole community behind you now." The next few months were busy as I settled into my new role. I worked closely with the board to review all proposed projects and policy changes, always with an eye toward protecting homeowners' rights. We set up a new system for communicating with residents, including a monthly newsletter and an online forum where people could voice their concerns and suggestions. One day, about 6 months into my new position, I received an unexpected email. It was from Tom, one of the former board members who had been involved in the parking lot fiasco. "Mike," the email read, "I hope this message finds you well. I've been following the positive changes in our community, and I wanted to reach out to you personally. What we did was wrong, and I'm truly sorry for the stress and trouble we caused you and Sarah. Seeing how you've turned that experience into something positive for the whole community, well, it's made me do a lot of thinking. I was wondering if you'd be willing to meet for coffee sometime. I have some ideas I'd like to run by you about how we might be able to further improve our neighborhood. I showed the email to Sarah, unsure how to respond. What do you think? I asked her. Sarah considered for a moment. I think you should meet him. It takes courage to admit you were wrong and try to make amends. Who knows? His ideas might be worth hearing. I nodded, appreciating her perspective as always. I replied to Tom, agreeing to meet at a local coffee shop the following week. When the day came, I found myself feeling a mix of emotions, curiosity, a lingering bit of resentment, but also a hope that something good might come from this meeting. Tom was already at the coffee shop when I arrived. He stood up as I approached, looking nervous. "Mike, thanks for coming," he said, extending his hand. I shook it, noticing how different he seemed from the confrontational board member I dealt with 2 years ago. We sat down, and after some initial awkward small talk, Tom got to the point. "Look, Mike," he said, his voice earnest, "I can't change what happened, but I want to try to make things right. I've been thinking about how we can make our community even better, and I have an idea I'd like to run by you." I nodded, encouraging him to continue. "You know that vacant lot at the end of Oak Street? The one the homeowner association owns?" Tom asked. I nodded. The lot had been a point of contention for years, with various proposals for its use all falling through. "Well," Tom continued, "I was thinking, what if we turned it into a community garden? We could divide it into plots that residents could rent for a small fee. It would be a great way to bring people together, promote sustainable living, and maybe even donate some of the produce to local food banks." I sat back, considering the idea. It was actually pretty good. "That's an interesting proposal, Tom. Have you thought about the logistics, maintenance, water access, that sort of thing?" Tom nodded eagerly, pulling out a folder full of notes and sketches. "I've done some research. Here's what I'm thinking." We spent the next hour going over Tom's plans. I had to admit, he'd put a lot of thought into it. As we talked, I found myself getting excited about the possibilities. "You know, Tom," I said as we were wrapping up, "this could really work. Why don't you come to the next board meeting and present your idea? I'd be happy to support it." Tom's face lit up. "Really? That would be great, Mike. And, thank you, for giving me a chance to make things right." I nodded, feeling a sense of closure. That's what community is all about, isn't it? Second chances, working together, making things better for everyone. The community garden project was approved unanimously at the next board meeting. Over the following months, it became a reality. Residents of all ages got involved, from retirees sharing their gardening wisdom to kids learning how to grow their own vegetables for the first time. One sunny Saturday, about a year after that coffee meeting with Tom, Sarah and I were at the community garden, tending to our plot. Tom was a few rows over, helping a young couple set up their first garden bed. As I straightened up, wiping sweat from my brow, I looked around at the thriving garden and the smiling faces of our neighbors. I couldn't help but marvel at how far we'd come. Sarah came up beside me, a basket of fresh tomatoes in her hands. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked. I smiled, putting an arm around her shoulders. Just thinking about how sometimes, the worst situations can lead to the best outcomes. If the old homeowner association hadn't tried to build that parking lot on our property, we wouldn't be standing here in this beautiful community garden, Sarah finished for me. I nodded, and we wouldn't have learned how strong we can be when we stand up for what's right. Sarah leaned into me. "You know, I'm kinda glad it all happened. Not the bad parts, obviously, but where it led us. Look at our community now. Everyone's engaged, people are getting to know their neighbors, we're growing food for ourselves and for those in need. It's pretty amazing." "It really is," I agreed. As we stood there, I spotted Rachel, our homeowner association president, entering the garden with a group of people I didn't recognize. "Mike, Sarah," she called out, waving us over. "Come meet our visitors. They're from the neighboring homeowner association, here to see how we run things. They're thinking of starting their own community garden." As we walked over to greet the visitors, I felt a sense of pride and accomplishment wash over me. We hadn't just won a battle against an unjust homeowner association decision. We'd started a movement, inspiring positive changes that were spreading beyond our own community. I realized then that our story wasn't just about protecting our own little piece of paradise. It was about showing what's possible when people come together, stand up for what's right, and work to create the kind of community they want to live in. As I began to explain our garden project to the visitors, I caught Sarah's eye. She gave me a proud smile, and I knew she was thinking the same thing I was. Sometimes, The best way to overcome injustice is not just to fight against it, but to use it as motivation to create something better. Our garden had indeed grown into something beautiful. Not just the plants, but the sense of community, the spirit of cooperation, and the knowledge that together, we could face any challenge that came our way. And as for me, well, I may have started this journey as just a homeowner trying to protect his garden, but I've become something more. A voice for homeowners' rights, a catalyst for positive change, and a reminder that one person really can make a difference. It hasn't always been easy, and I'm sure there will be more challenges ahead. But standing here, in this garden that represents so much more than just flowers and vegetables, I know we're ready for whatever comes next. Because now, we're not just neighbors, we're a community, stronger and more united than ever before. Are you hungry for more slices of stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to never miss out on any videos. See you tomorrow at Story Slices.